Hello everyone, it's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. A few days ago, Drew from Tailosive EV put out this video called Apple Should Buy Aptera. It's a great video. He talks about all kinds of reasons why Apple should buy Aptera, including how Apple wants to be different and they've been working on a car anyway, and Apple has tons of money. They could easily afford Aptera and they would make the UI of Aptera awesome. And Apple has always talked about how efficient their stuff is, and they're always talking about how much they care about the environment and tons of other reasons. You should go check out his video. It's called Apple Should Buy Aptera. I'll link his video in the description below, but check it out. Very interesting video, lots to think about, and Drew gives tons of good reasons why it may be a good match. So I watched the video. I thought it was great and made me think a lot about things. But I think there's a couple of reasons why it may not be great, and um, and why it's probably not happening. I think everyone agrees that it's probably not happening, but there's a couple of reasons that I think it's probably not happening. Now, this is purely an opinion piece, and you guys are probably going to have totally different opinions than me. And me personally, I'm not an Apple guy. I don't have a Mac. I don't have an Apple Watch, and I don't use iPhones. I have a Android phone. I've probably given you guys more information than you want about me. Okay, so thing number one is that Apple has always been kind of anti right to repair. They've made their devices very difficult to repair. They don't give you any technical specs. They don't sell parts. They basically don't want you to mess with their stuff. They make their stuff in a way that works well, and they don't want you tinkering with it. Now, recently, just in the past year, they have changed their mind, and they are starting to sell parts. They are starting to put out repair manuals, and they are starting to make things easier to repair. And but this is not how they've been. Traditionally, they've been one of the most vocal and most visible anti-right to repair companies um, around. But they're slowly changing their mind. So that is a big part of Aptera is the right to repair, and I think it's one of the reasons that many of us are fans of Aptera. I mean, that's personally one of the reasons I did not get a Tesla because Tesla is also kind of anti-right to repair and I wanted to not be left with an orphan product or a product that would be ridiculously expensive to repair or has a limited shelf life because it's kind of made for planned obsolescence. Because that's against the ethos of being environmentally friendly. You want to, the most environmentally friendly thing is to keep using the thing you already have and to repair the thing that you have and keep it in service for as long as possible. And that's usually the most environmentally friendly thing to do. Anyways, Aptera is for right to repair, and Apple has traditionally been anti right to repair. That is now changing, so maybe that's not as big an issue. Um, but I think that is one of the things where they're philosophically not aligned, although they may be getting closer to alignment on that. Number two is Apple is kind of a company that wants to control the experience. That's why they make their own hardware and they make their own software. They control both sides of the coin, which makes the Apple experience very good. If you are the kind of person that just wants stuff to work and you don't really care about the technicalities of it, generally Apple products are going to work out well for you. Now, I'm not saying that technically minded people are not using Apple products. I mean, that's definitely not the case. There are people that are way more technically savvy than I am that are big Apple fans. But I think the ethos of the company, at least the way that I interpret it, is they want to give you a product that's easy to use out of the box, does not require anyone to understand exactly how it works or know the inner workings of it. They don't want you tinkering with it, and they want stuff to just do what you want it to do, which is a great, which obviously has worked out well for them. I mean, they're like probably the most dominant consumer electronics company in the world. And they are, I believe, the single largest manufacturer of smartphones in the world. If not, they're definitely the most profitable smartphone manufacturer. There's probably smartphone manufacturers that produce more uh, products, but I think that they're probably the lower end stuff. Um, So that's worked out well for them. I think Aptera is different in that they want you kind of tinkering with their stuff a little bit. The other thing is that Apple is kind of a closed ecosystem. They want you to kind of lock into their stuff. They want you to use iTunes and Apple TV and Apple Watch and iPhone and Mac. And if you have their whole ecosystem, things work very well together. And also, Apple works well with other Apple products. Like one of the biggest kind of frustrations of Android users is doing group texts with Apple users. And I think Apple users feel the same way about Android users because iMessage uses their own proprietary uh, method of communicating these multimedia and group messages, and it works very well if everyone's on iMessage. But once you throw an Android in there, you have to go back to MMS, which is really clunky and bad. And now there is an open standard that would allow for that, allow for the type of messaging that iMessage does, where you can leave and join chats, and it handles media a lot better. But Apple is just not on board with that. They're like, we have iMessage, it works well for us, and we're the dominant player in the market, and we don't want to play nice in the sandbox with anyone else. And so you guys can have your standard, but we're sticking with our standard. And so their system is set up so that as long as you buy everything within Apple and use their software and use their products and interact with their products, things are going to work pretty well. Once you go outside, things get a little clunky. I think Aptera actually wants other companies to kind of play in their sandbox. Like one of the big example is their modular console, that center console. They're making it so that if you want to 3D print your own kind of cup holder, go ahead, please do it. If another company wants to make accessories that fit into that, they very much want to foster an open ecosystem that lets other companies play in their sandbox. So that's philosophically a little bit different thing. And then next is Apple products tend to be a little bit more premium. They're going after the kind of more premium market, and they will charge a little bit more of a premium price. So I think Aptera's price would likely go up if Apple bought them out. And then Apple generally wants their products to be very polished and, like I said, work well out of the box, which I think is a great thing. And ideally, Aptera also wants it to be very polished, but um, I think that would delay things more. My suspicion is that Aptera is going to put out products as fast as they can, and initially they're going to roll them out to Southern California customers because they understand that the first few customers, and I hope the first few customers understand that we are kind of going to be beta testers a little bit. Um, things are there's going to be some glitches, there're going to be some problems, and they want the first customers to be nearby so that we can kind of troubleshoot and fix the initial issues that come up. I think Apple will not do that. If Apple were to take over Aptera, they are going to want things polished, and it's going to delay the rollout a while, at least a year or two, I think, because they're going to want it to a different level of quality control. And then here's the thing I think is probably the most important. Back when Aptera was first started back in 2009, Chris and Steve gave up control of the company to an outside entity and investors who brought in an outside CEO, and they basically changed the vision of the company and changed the strategy of the company, and the company eventually liquidated. Steve and Chris tried to regain control of the company, but the board basically voted against them and they lost control of the company and was in a way kicked out of the company. And I think that was an extremely painful experience for them. And I can imagine why. Like, if I was starting a company and I had a vision for a company and I lost control of the company, or I voluntarily gave up control of the company to a larger investor thinking that they would know how to run it better and have more experience than me, and then to watch them dilute or corrupt the vision that I had for the company and then still fail, I think that's an extremely painful experience to go through. And I think it's one thing to try to run the company and be true to your vision and then have it fail. And you can say, you know what, I tried to do the thing I wanted to do and it failed. That's different than giving up control and having someone else run the company in a different way than you would have and then having it fail. So I think this time when they did it, one of the things that they really tried to avoid is relinquishing control of the company. So they wanted to keep control of the company and run it and develop it the way that they wanted to do it. I suspect, and this is just total speculation on my part, is that they had opportunities earlier on to get bigger investments if they would give up more control of the company. But I think they didn't want to give up control, and they probably turned down some investments. I'm almost positive that that happened, but I'm not sure. So to have Apple buy them out would be totally relinquishing control of the company. And I think in order for something like that to happen, they would have to be in very desperate straits. Like, I think the company would essentially be having to go bankrupt and be like on the brink of death before they would sell out the company. So I don't see that happening. I think that their plan is to see this through to the end. And until that's the very, very last option possible, I don't think that they're going to sell out to anyone. Um, I mean, what I think would be nice is I think it would be great if Apple or Tesla or any other company just invested in them and maybe became partners with them. I would not be opposed to Apple saying, here's $50 million. You just have to put Apple CarPlay in your thing, or we're going to design the UI for you guys. I think that would be great. But having them, I don't think that Steve or Chris is going to relinquish control of the company to an outside investor unless that is the very, very last option and they have no other option at that point. Okay, so anyways, go back and watch Drew's video about Apple should buy Aptera. I think that was a really interesting video, and basically this is just kind of a response video to that. And tell me what you think. Do you think that Apple and Aptera would be a good match or not? Because we know that Aptera needs funding. That's not any mystery. They need funding from somebody, and it's probably on the order of 50 to 100 million dollars. Is just my wild guess on the topic. Um, and so it would be great if someone with a lot of cash, like Apple, would help them out. I think an outright buying of the company is not happening, and I don't know that it really aligns with Apple too much. I think they've got their own ideas of what they want to do, and they've been working on it for many years. And I'm not sure that Aptera has like tech that they really want. I mean, they did buy out Beats by Dre several years ago, and Beats by Dre has kind of maintained some autonomy from Apple. And I think Apple mainly bought them for their streaming service and turned it into Apple Music. And I think that was their biggest thing. But the headphone tech was also a little bit important. But they've kept their company somewhat separate and as a subsidiary of Apple. I guess there's some way that if they maintained autonomy and Apple just needed a little tech from them, they would buy them out. But I don't know what tech they would need, like solar or aerodynamic design. I'm not sure. Maybe the composite structuring, but those are all things that I think are not super new, and they wouldn't need to buy out Apple to get access to that kind of IP. Okay. All right. Well, tell me what you guys think. Thanks for watching. And thanks as always to our supporting members. And have a great day, everyone.